EAT is effectively catalyzing a movement, drawing attention to the connections between the ways we produce and consume food and our current failure to secure a healthy and sustainable future for the next generation. As a member of the EAT Advisory Board, the World Food Program, and I personally am committed to this movement, to working with EATs. For those of you who don't know WFP, WFP is the United Nations World Food Program, and you often hear about us because we are the front line during acute hunger crisis. We feed 100 million people every year in some of the toughest places in the world. But the reality is there's a recognition that acute hunger, feeding people during emergencies, and the cost of feeding people during emergencies is one of the most significant challenges to actually achieving zero hunger. Because if you had asked me 2 years ago, I would have said that climate change was the challenge that was creating acute hunger in the world, because we were addressing Somalia and the crop failures in Somalia and the effect that that had on the movement of populations, Mali and the Sahel and the failure of the harvest and the lack of rain and the effect that that was having. This year, 4 of the 5 major crises that we are addressing are directly related to conflict. And the population movements and the lack of availability of food because markets are shut down because of conflicts, because of the lack of access to food, as you heard the Director General talk about, the inability to access food that's in the market because conflict shoots market prices sky high, and the poor and the vulnerable that WFP supports can't then afford the food that they need. And so the world provides the support to WFP to ensure that during these crises, during these conflicts, that people won't go hungry. So this year, we will raise more than $4.4 billion to feed those hungry people. But 70% of it will go into those conflict areas, and only 30% will go towards ensuring that people are building their resilience, that we're addressing the challenges of smallholder farmers, that we're working to address the challenges of nutrition that will ensure that the next generation has the micronutrient support that they need. And so we will fail. So our biggest challenge, in addition to climate change, is peace. Because without peace, we're going to leave too many people behind. We won't get to zero hunger in too many places around the world. So that must be part of the chapeau of all of these documents that you heard Jeff Sachs talking about, all of these negotiations, is a demand from the global community for peace as part of all of these agendas. But assuming we have peace, let's assume we have peace, okay? Peace is done. All right, done. And the other dimensions of food insecurity, of course, are availability. Graziano spoke to the challenges of availability. Access, we've talked about the challenges of access. Waste, we've talked about the challenges of waste and the impact that that has on food systems. The other that we didn't talk about that was touched on by one of the speakers is a challenge of absorption or utilization of food. And that means lack of sanitation, lack of clean water. So the micronutrients that you ingest, your body can't process because what goes in comes out. And particularly for children. And so again, no one organization, no one issue area, focusing on that issue area, focusing one organization, focusing on their outcomes and outputs is going to achieve the zero hunger world that will allow us to ensure that we can double harvest and then feed 9 billion people. So what it means is that it requires simultaneous action and us working together across dimensions, across organization, across issues. Because we know it can be done. Because since the MDGs were set, we have actually reduced the number of food insecure people in the world by 200 million people. But unfortunately, at the rate we're going, we're now at 805 million people who are food insecure. We reduced by about 100 million people every 10 years. That would mean it would take us another 8 decades to get to zero. That's not our goal. Our goal is by 2050 to get to zero, which means that what we've done to date, we can't do in the future. In other words, what got us here won't get us where we're going. We embraced the success of the Green Revolution, but we know that there were significant challenges, as we've heard from the speakers today, that resulted from the technology that we used in the Green Revolution. We have better technology today. We have better tools today. So we can leapfrog the challenges of the past, the mistakes of the past. But what we also must ensure as we leapfrog as a society, sitting in this room in our suits in New York, having taken cabs to get here, is that the people who are not in this room, the hungry poor that WFP works with every day, demand that we develop the solutions that are not just grass-top solutions that are about the new policy frameworks and creating the appropriate environments to support what we need to move forward, or drafting the right documents that all the nations can agree to in the 3 upcoming conferences that will provide an opportunity, as we said, to go beyond a photo op, but actually have real documents that make a difference. But we need action. We need action that reaches to the most vulnerable people. We need action that includes women, which I haven't heard anybody say tonight. The Secretary General said it earlier today. We can't achieve these goals if we leave 50% of our population out of the solution. And we know that when we are talking about the issues of food, if we are not talking about women and how we work with women, how we support girls' empowerment, how we ensure mothers receive the right micronutrients, that we're not talking about solutions. And so I could go on, but I just want to raise one more issue with you before I finish up, because I know I'm past my 3 minutes. And that one more issue is the money. Because the reality is, we have great programs at WFP. We don't have the resources to scale them up. They're great programs in Malawi, because we work with Malawi government on one of those with SIF. And the challenge is, how do we scale up to even address more people? If we do not address the challenge, I want to call it an opportunity, but it is a challenge, of overcoming the funding patterns for humanitarian and humanitarian development activities that see large sums of money come in during a CNN moment and fall off as soon as the cameras go off, And so we don't have the multi-year investment in programs that are necessary to drive the outcomes that are sustainable and durable, that actually change people's lives, then we fail. And so we need to go beyond lip service to we support programs, but actually having those tough conversations beyond carbon taxes that still haven't worked yet, beyond the conversations about should we have a tax on airplane tickets or international financial transaction. We've had all these conversations. But unless people in this room can lead a movement that will drive policymakers to actually implement monetary, financial change that will ensure that we can actually provide the resources to support the poorest and most vulnerable, you and I will do okay. But the rest of the world, those we need to bring along in order to ensure we get to zero hunger, will be left behind. This is a movement about leaving no one behind. We're embracing the concept of universality, that no matter where you are, whether developed or developing world, in the developing world, that you have access to nutritious food all year round. Whether you are born under whatever faith, that equity will ensure that you have access to all the tools that will provide a different opportunity for you and your children. If we truly believe in this movement, we need to drive for the hard decisions, not the photo op opportunity of getting us to the least difficult position that everybody can sign on to. That's when we know we'll get to real change. As Nelson Mandela says, it always seemed impossible until it is done. We can do this, but only if we're committed to doing differently than what got us here today. Thank you.
Bravo.